I would like to call the school board meeting for August 13th, 2019 for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Please take the roll.
Mr. Barron.
Here.
Ms. Bradley.
Here.
Ms. Langford. Here. Ms. Ellsburn.
Here.
Ms. Delagardelle.
Here.
Ms. Caldwell-Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Anderson.
Here.
The first item of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Caldwell-Johnson, second by Delagardelle. Please vote. You can approve the agenda. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is approval of minutes for July 9th, 2019. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Second.
Motion by Caldwell-Johnson, second by Bradley. Any discussion or questions? Please vote. Vote is approved 5-0 with 2 abstaining. Next item on our agenda is approval of minutes for August 2nd, 2019. May I have a motion and a second to approve these minutes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Caldwell-Johnson, second by Delagardelle. Any discussion? Please vote. I think we probably needed some abstentions from August 2nd.
What? August 2nd. Oh, I just did. Okay.
That was the phone meeting, right?
Phone meeting.
I was there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstaining.
No recognitions.
There are no recognitions. Thank you. Next item on the agenda are consent items. We allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak to an agenda item, please go to the information desk to sign up. Remarks must be germane to the agenda, and we ask that you avoid reference to personalities and character attacks, as those types of comments serve no productive purpose. We appreciate your input. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with the speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determinations as deemed necessary. Ms. Anderson, do you have the motion?
Yes. I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $16,543,486.19, and procurement card transactions in the amount of $763,710.87.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Anderson and second by Delagardelle. Any questions or discussion on any of the consent items? Please vote. Consent items are approved 7-0. Next, we have a public hearing. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item E1, public hearing for sidewalk easement at Lovejoy Elementary? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce the item?
I recommend the board approve granting a sidewalk easement to the city of Des Moines at Lovejoy Elementary School, 801 East Kenyon Avenue, following a public hearing.
May I please have a motion and a second to approve the public hearing and superintendent's recommendation?
Second.
Motion by Langford, second by Anderson. Any questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. And next we have another public hearing. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item E2, public hearing for East High School football and track reconstruction? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
I recommend the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by Angelo Architecture for the replacement of the football playing surface and running track at Williams Stadium, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
May I please have a motion and a second to approve the public hearing and superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Delagardelle, second by Langford. Any questions or discussion? Please vote. Vote is approved 7-0. The next item on our agenda is item F1, open enrollment late applications for denial. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, the items on F1 are open enrollment applications that were not timely and did not meet any special exceptions, and so are being recommended for denial.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to deny the open enrollment late applications listed for item F1?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we do have speakers for this item, and as a reminder to the speakers, state law gives the resident school district authority to act on an open enrollment application within the parameters of that law. This agenda item is part of a district process to complete that action and does not constitute a formal hearing by the board, and therefore the board will not interact with speakers. As stated earlier in the meeting, in regards to speaker comments, discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determination as deemed necessary. The board has been provided with all documentation given to the open enrollment office regarding each individual case number on the agenda. The first speaker I will call is Angie Breeding.
This is where we go. Do you just want us to tell you why we think he needs to be open enrolled? Okay. We missed the deadline because I didn't realize there was a deadline. I had one of his teachers, also his counselor, and then some text messages from him. He came from a very small school in 2 weeks, which is a very large school. That caused a lot of anxiety, which also caused cutting. We're on a wait list for everything. We talked to Carlisle, which is where we plan to move, hopefully by next summer. So we wanted to get him in before then. I talked to the superintendent at Carlisle. They have room for him. It's just a matter of you guys releasing him. So he just can't deal in that bigger environment, which Carlisle only has 4,200 people. It's a smaller environment. There's only one of each school. We feel that that would be a better fit for him, as Weeks was kind of a danger for him. We don't want him to fall through the cracks. He was an A and B student this year, 2 Fs, 2 Ds, C and a B. He struggled tremendously this year. So we're just wanting to switch him. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. The next speaker, Charles Jones.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you, but most of all, thank you for your dedication as a board to Des Moines Public Schools. My name is Charles Jones. I am a employee of Des Moines Public Schools going on 16 years. And our son is a student here in Des Moines Public Schools. The past 3 years, he has experienced some severe bullying at his school, which caused some damages, preventing him to be able to continue his competitive swimming, bruising in his face, his body, and also his ability to be confident in school. He has a counselor that he's worked with and has worked with the teachers here, and she has written a recommendation also as we made our decision for him to be able to move out. We tried to get into other schools with another school within Des Moines Public Schools, but they were full, and our decision was to move him to West Des Moines Schools. I hope you understand, as a parent, you'll do anything necessary to protect your kids. I, as an employee, do everything necessary to protect other people's kids. This is a decision my wife and I have come to. My son has had night terrors to go to school. He's made up every excuse possible not to go to school. His teachers have recognized it and called us, saying that we've seen a difference, a drop. He's a bright kid. He's a great reader. He enjoys math. He's been a competitive swimmer since he was 4 years old. It's not perfect. No kid is. No one is. But we want to make sure as parents that we're giving him the utmost opportunity to receive an excellent education. And at this point, we don't feel that's going to happen. We need to give him, along with his counselor, feel that a new start will give him new confidence so that he can start over and engaging with new friends, new teachers. And as we make that transition, we would just like to get him into the school district now. So as we make that transition, he would have already had made the transition and be there. So I'd ask that you approve the application for open enrollment to West Des Moines Schools for his mental, physical. To let you know, we've already received individuals that have attacked my son, threatened him because they knew he'd be going to the next school. So that's a fear that he has, knowing going to the next school, that they've already said that they'll attack him again. The last time he was attacked, it wasn't anything he was able to do. This individual attacked him in an MMA style, knocked him on his stomach, beating him in the face. If you have kids, grandkids, next door neighbor kids, to hear a story like that is pretty terrifying. To be an employee of the school district, knowing that that's something I don't allow to happen on my watch, was a hard thing to see when my son came home. So we want to do everything possible to make sure that he doesn't have to meet up with those individuals in the lunchroom, in the hallway, and the classroom. And I understand in 15 years that you can't watch everything that's going on. And due to the fact that I know that I can't expect that the teachers and those hall monitors are going to be able to do a 100% job of making sure that he doesn't end up being exposed to those individuals, because information slips through the cracks, maybe not sure, and then that's things can occur. And we just want to ensure that his educational safety, wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness is intact by being allowed to move. Thank you very much for listening to him.
But I didn't learn about it until he'd already applied. I'll share that with the board.
Thank you for being here. Board, is there any discussion, or does anyone have any questions? You didn't? Okay. The first speaker was Angie Breeding, and the second speaker was Charles Jones.
And whatever action that the board takes doesn't close opportunities for any of these students or any other students to find additional placement within Des Moines Public Schools. It's typically the district's perspective that with so many different schools and so many different educational models that we have opportunities to serve students beyond their home school, and that we feel very confident about the level of service that we provide, that we can meet our kids' needs in school or at Virtual Academy.
Yeah, in fact, one of these cases I learned about this weekend and have been working on it this weekend, and because of everything that's been going on, I haven't been able to connect all the staff that I needed to on Monday and Tuesday, but I know one of these will have resolved probably tomorrow. The other one I'm going to look into in more detail.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Delgardelle and a second by Anderson. Please. I'm going to get there. Motion by Delgardelle, second by Anderson. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. To the speakers, thank you for coming to speak on behalf of your student this evening. Open enrollment is governed by the Iowa Department of Education and regulated by state law, which provides parameters each district must use when making decisions regarding requests for open enrollment. The Iowa Department of Education instructs each district to determine whether it has the capacity to meet the student's educational needs. Regarding your request of open enrollment out of Des Moines Public Schools, it has been determined that the Des Moines Public Schools can meet your student's needs, and therefore the board has voted to deny the request. Associate Superintendent Matt Smith will follow up with you now, and a representative from the DMPS Open Enrollment Office will contact you within 24 hours to discuss further options, including those opportunities within our school district that can meet the needs of your student and continue to support their growth and achievement. Thank you again for being here this evening. Next on our agenda is item F2, open enrollment appeals for denial. This also is an item, I'm going to wait for Tom to introduce it. Okay, Superintendent Earhart, we are on F2, appeals for denial. And could you please introduce this item?
Oops, sorry, I just lost.
That's all right.
Yeah, so the cases listed on F2 are open enrollment applications that had been denied initially, and then they appealed. There are some special cases which a timely application may be overturned, and these are the appeals that we've received that did not meet the special exceptions.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to deny the open enrollment appeals listed for item F2?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers for this item? Okay.
Oh, wait, is it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can we have, I think we do need a card filled out, and then you are welcome to speak. I forgot to ask for more speakers last time, but
Oh.
that's fine. Thank you. Okay, Aaron McKay, please go ahead and state your name and address for,
My name's Aaron McKay. I live at 6207 Southwest 2nd Street, which falls in the South Union School District. My daughter was denied transfer or open enrollment privileges based on the late enrollments. We had a custody issue, and it just got resolved on July 30th. You guys have copies of court recommending her to be open enrolled and transferred out. You have it from DHS as well, and you should have one from her therapist as well, saying best benefit for her would be to go to a smaller school, which is Carlisle. And ultimately, like, I want to point out that she has friends, she has family, and ultimately she has a support system there that she would not have at the Des Moines Public Schools. And to be honest with you, the information speaks for itself. It would be the best in her interest, our interest, and everybody's interest for her to be open enrolled.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Board, do you have any questions, or is there any discussion regarding this item?
I just want to clarify, and Tom, I don't know if you have this information, but with the custody, was there a change in address that predicated the need for Carlisle, or is there just the desire for a smaller school, which led them to Carlisle?
You know what, I don't know that without following up directly
Okay.
with Dana and Eleanor, which I have a note to do
Okay, thank
first thing
you.
in the morning.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Terry Caldwell Johnson, a second by Rob Barron. Please vote. The vote passes 7-0. And again, thank you for coming to speak on behalf of your student this evening. We do have Assistant Superintendent Matt Smith here to follow up with you now, and a representative from the Open Enrollment Office will contact you within 24 hours to discuss further options, including those opportunities within our school district that can meet the needs of your student. Thank you again for being here this evening. The next item on our agenda is item 3, student expectations policy revision. The student expectation policy has been revised to align with the newly adopted SMART goals and our SEL priority. We did discuss this at our last meeting, but wanted to leave it as a separate item, so we would have the benefit of full board opportunity to discuss again if needed prior to action. So I'll take a motion in a second to approve this item.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. And then open it up for any discussion or questions.
It's definitely consistent with what we discussed. I don't know that I have any other comments, but I do like the specificity that we've included here that I think allows us to be much more focused.
Thank you. Anything else?
I was going to say, I appreciate moving towards a SMART goal format, which I think keeps us more clear to our community of what the expectations are for our students, as well as I think it helps to direct Tom's work probably in a more specific way that's probably helpful for him and the conversations that we have at the board table. So I'm really pleased to see that we're going to be starting to measure ourselves in this way.
Mr. Barron?
I agree. I think we've got good goals. I think we followed a good process. I look forward to sticking to them for a few years and seeing if we can drive improvement and find that efficacy that I think all board members are always looking for in these roles. I want to note that so I'm joining the board of United Way of Central Iowa in September, and one of their top goals is to increase third grade reading in the 3-county area that they serve, and their goals are targeted to 2020, and so now they're trying to figure out what that next iteration of that looks like. So I'll look forward to kind of sharing the goals that we've set out, because it's not done. They may reach their goal, and we would be a big part of that if that did happen. But if that's something that you wanted to continue to pursue, to know that we've put such high priority and such a very visible mark for success out there on this is key.
Agreed. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Then we do have a motion on the floor. With no other comments, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is item F4, naming request for ropes course at Stowe Elementary. We had a subcommittee review this item since our last agenda to make a recommendation. So Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, would you mind giving the overview of that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Our committee was comprised of Dewana, Rob, and myself, and we reviewed the request that was submitted. It actually came from, oh shoot, I just lost the name of the organization. Doesn't matter. But they actually developed CYC, Community Youth Concepts. Thank you very much. They actually developed the ropes course at Stowe, and because of the location of the ropes course, there was a very specific request made to reflect the location. We found it a little odd that we really weren't naming for an individual, so it sort of took us a little off course, because typically we're reflecting back on an individual, their qualities, et cetera, and that didn't allow us the opportunity to do it. So we sort of just went with the recommendation, recognizing that it definitely fit the location of the ropes course and was consistent with the request that was made by CYC.
Great, thank you.
And I'd be happy to advance the motion.
Great. So we have a motion by Caldwell-Johnson. May I have a second?
Second.
A second by Anderson. Is there any discussion or questions for the committee or anybody else? Thank you, committee, and please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is item F5, 2020 DMPS legislative priorities. This is a discussion item. Dr. Ahart, would you please give some background regarding these recommendations or?
Yeah, so what I'm recommending are, as you see there on your attachment, three specific, relatively specific legislative priorities, but as sort of a preamble to that, a note to adequate supplemental state aid. That's not something that we've sort of trumpeted as a DMPS specific priority, but certainly now that we're in nearly a decade, excuse me, a decade of record low supplemental state aid, it may be useful to beat that drum a little more loudly in conjunction with all the other organizations who are trying to work on getting adequate state funding, but then to really drill down to the three bulleted items. The third one, I'll start at the bottom. The third one is the same as last year. We actually made some progress on that one. Ended up modifying the ask when we learned, or we understood from the Senate, that this ask for last budget year exceeded what would get any action. So we reduced it down to, I think it was 0.29, because that met their budgetary restrictions, but we were not successful ultimately. But we did actually have robust conversations about it. It did make it through partway through the process. So we feel like this is something that's primed for a better chance of success for next year. The next one up, the middle one, increase funding for 4-year-old preschool students in need. We made this one a little bit more. I'm recommending a little more specificity here. Reduce the cliff effect by providing half-day preschool for all students, as we do now, but address that cliff effect, which prevents many of our families from taking advantage of the half-day preschool because they're unable to provide transportation and or services for the other half of the day, which prevents them from taking advantage of the half-day. And so I'm recommending that we get legislation that would provide for families at 200% of the poverty rate, that fall at 200% or below of 200% of the poverty rate, that they get full-day service, half-day preschool, half-day high-quality daycare. And then the top one is something we've talked about quite a bit. I've been trying to talk to as many folks as I can on this idea, this concept, for the last several years. The UEN is adopting something very similar, but essentially we're talking about having the legislature change the basic funding formula to recognize poverty on the front end, so that whatever rate supplemental state aid is set at, students in poverty will be better funded. So we think that will do a couple of things. One, I think we stand a better chance of raising this rate of supplemental state aid, because we'll have districts who will not benefit much from this, and they'll still claim, and rightfully so, that they need a certain amount of supplemental state aid. But if we continue to distribute supplemental state aid on a per pupil basis without recognizing any of the differences among our students and what services they need to be successful and to really have equity of opportunity, we're never really going to bend that curve in equity of outcomes in a meaningful way, or certainly not fast enough. So those are the three that I'm proposing.
Thank you. And I appreciate that you added that preamble around the state supplemental or supplemental state aid. Board, do you have any questions or comments on these? Anything to add? Anything? Yes, Deanna.
No questions. I think I'm most excited. I mean, seeing that we've actually had some movement in terms of some of our legislative priorities in the past, it's exciting to see us kind of move on to the next phase of this work. And I'm really excited to see, recognizing this is like that long-term work, we may not, get to that place this legislative session, but that we're setting the groundwork to maybe actually get some funding for our students who need it most in the coming years. So yeah, I'm really excited that's the direction that we're going.
Anyone else?
similarly to that, I think as a community member before I joined the board, it was nice to see that we were being very strategic and thoughtful about what the needs were for our students in this community. And it's also been great to see the places where we can collaborate with our peers and colleagues across the state, because we know that students, regardless of location and regardless of zip code, deserve equitable education, and that there are different needs. And I think sometimes our state, and I think, could just do a better job of recognizing that. And I think this proposal to think about this in terms of free and reduced lunch as kind of a universal indicator of a greater need to be served by education is important.
Agreed. Anybody else?
I just had one question and one comment. So Tom, remind me what the loss of title dollars translates to relative to our district in the coming year.
I should be able to give you a dollar figure on that, but I'm not pulling one up that I'm
Yeah, I feel like
confident in sharing.
we
but
asked
it's,
this question and you shared it, I just don't remember.
it's about a 3% cut from what we received the year prior.
Yeah.
What it's equating to are a number of FTEs. If you remember, there are changes about how we have to report our Title I spending since the adoption of the Every Student Succeeds Act. And that means that we need to report in actual dollars spent, not a formula, how we distribute those funds. So a school last year may have been able to afford, with their Title I allocation, 2 teachers. With a reduction of 3%, and depending on how much salary those teachers make, they may no longer be able to afford those 2 teachers. And so they're forced to either do a forced transfer to get a less expensive teacher, or reduce an actual FTE and then find something else to do with those dollars that they really wanted to pay for a teacher for. And so the 3%, that's a challenge in and of itself, but with a 3% reduction, that's caused additional reductions that otherwise wouldn't have been made. I do also want to note that the way we look at the numbers nationwide, it would appear as though Iowa got a disproportionate share of Title I reductions, because at least among the Urban Education Network schools, we are not seeing what the Fed claims to be seeing in terms of distributing Title I. So we've been working with Dave Tilley at the State Department of Ed to get the actual numbers that they used to make these calculations, because it's just not making sense to us why we're getting this level of reduction when we're seeing increases in the population that those dollars are intended to serve. And the funding level at, nationally was rather flat. So we anticipated a reduction, but the math, as we understand it, isn't coming out in the way it's actually playing out in distribution. So we are doing some further investigation on that. But of course, if we do see any resolution to that, it'll be past definitely the start of the school year.
So I asked that question because it seems to me that if this particular legislative priority were to pass and be approved, that could sort of buttress some of those losses
Absolutely.
that we anticipate
Yes.
with the title dollars. So
Yes.
that would be, it's not going to be money on top of money. It may replace lost dollars.
Right.
So that could really help us significantly, especially in the title schools. And then the other thought that I had about this really went to just this notion of how this could be, I think, a game changer across the state, because as we know, poverty exists in great degree in rural parts of our state.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes, people really equate poverty to being very much an urban issue, when in the state of Iowa, it is not.
Right.
So I think there could be a great value proposition for how we rally lobbyists and legislators across the state to our position on this. So, thank
Agreed.
you.
And Tom, this is really just maybe just provide a little more perspective of how we landed at the 200% poverty rate, because I think for a family of 4, it's like around $30,000, correct? Is what the poverty level is? if I'm, I mean, I don't know what it is exactly. I do know, though, that the federal poverty rate does not, that even if you're slightly above that or at that, that's not adequate oftentimes for families.
Right.
And so I'm just curious why we landed at the 200% instead of saying we should be taking care of this for any student or family that falls at the poverty line, instead of it having to be that they, am I understanding how 200% works in this? It's not that it's like half, it's that it'd be
It's
double
twice.
it, twice it.
Twice,
Okay,
yeah.
that's just my,
And that's in
for
reaction.
the record, for folks at home, I'm an English teacher, I'm not teaching anyone math, so.
You know, the federal poverty rate hasn't changed for some time, and,
Yeah.
and it would seem that we're overdue for making that correction, because if you look at being if you're twice the poverty rate, if you earn twice if your household has twice the income as a family that is at that poverty rate,
You're still not,
you
yep, okay.
you have a difficult time meeting all the needs of your family at that rate of income, and so.
So we have the same understanding of sentiment, I'm just reading the math
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I would also add that in the most recent legislation that United Way has been promoting, they've been focused on 200% of poverty as well. So it's consistent with other people who are doing work very much in the same vein.
It's nice when our community when we can be in a chorus with our community partners.
Right.
Anyone else? Then these will be in our next consent agenda for adoption. Okay, next item is F6, our board work plan, which we go through at each meeting as part of our process in accountability and practice of integrity. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Delagardelle.
Yes, I think that as far as updates, I don't think we're probably meeting with our city council anytime soon. Or do you have any update for us on that, Tom? I don't know if we've
Not a meaningful
really.
one.
Okay, thank you. External monitoring, I believe the board discussed, was that at the last board meeting? Okay.
We did, and Deanna has offered that no, wait,
It was a committee.
It was a committee.
Okay,
yep,
We haven't done
Okay.
much around that.
I was thinking the
That
other
was
thing.
something different, yeah. But that's not
Okay.
on here.
And we finished up and finalized process map vacancy at the last meeting, correct?
Yes, which that's the thing I was thinking about, that Deanna offered, that she'll put together documentation, as will Terry, an FAQ document
That would be
to be
great.
filed.
And our KPI review, I think
I
we're,
think that's probably going to be part of our work session discussion as we go through monitoring and
so it's kind of an ongoing.
ongoing, and I think we'll probably talk, our discussion in our work session will lead us more in that direction again.
Yeah, and as far as the treatment of employees, I know that's something we've wanted to set a work session around, what we'd like to see in the report. So Cindy, do we want to put it on for us for agenda planning?
Well, and that's actually one of the reports that was pulled from the agenda today.
Yeah.
Regarding and around probably some questions that need to be answered as far as when we expect what and what we expect. So I'm not sure
Okay,
Yeah.
how that needs to work.
okay.
And if that's something that we can talk about in agenda planning, or if that will also be, that can also be perhaps part of this work session discussion.
Okay. And so then our goal progress measures and our limitation progress measures around social emotional learning are also, will that be a work session that we'll do coming up at the very bottom? I'm guessing that was added at the end of last
right,
meeting. Yeah.
because you all have those. We just need to make sure you have the goal progress measures for the new goals already. And the limitations progress measures are in process. So once those are set, the board just needs to adopt them.
Okay.
And so it's just a note to remind, is
Okay.
what I added
Okay.
there.
Well, that takes us to the bottom of our list. Does any board member have anything that we should be adding to our to-do list?
So I think I'm going to hand out what Lori handed out at the end of the meeting the other day, or on Saturday. Kirsten and Terry and Tom and I talked with Lori after our work session on Saturday. to talk about the future implementation, their coaching process, and what to expect. So handing this out, there will be, this is from Lori, about what will be expected. Can I have that, actually, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Thanks.
So some of these items might be things that we add to the work plan or not, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to relay this information to the board. We did discuss the second bullet point around the receiving the agenda 7 to 10 days before the meeting, and the possibility of moving that to 10 days ahead, so that questions, that we have the board gets questions to the superintendent actually by Friday before the meeting at 8 a.m., just to give more opportunity for the superintendent to answer those questions. So that's something we'll need to discuss. Otherwise, I guess I will, and that's where that goal progress measures need to, that by the end of September bullet is where that goal progress measures, board limitations, limitation progress measures are in place and adopted. So the goal is to do that by the end of September, which is that line item added. So I'm going to leave the rest of that for you all to review, and I guess can ask questions as you need to, either now or in work session. Yes.
We did talk a little bit about trying to get things calendared sooner versus later so that we could plan accordingly. So.
That's right. Yes.
Discussing this to get on the calendar now, or are you saying you want us to look at this and we'll come back at a later time to discuss?
So what I can tell you, and chime in, anybody who was also in that, Kirsten, Tom, and I are going to, in agenda planning tomorrow, talk about how to facilitate that meeting, because we actually added vice chair to that list as well, so that as I transition out, Kirsten can transition in. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow on how to accommodate those meetings between Lori and us. The agenda, I think that is something that Tom needs to, the agenda receipt by the board was something that you needed to kind of flesh out as far as making that possible.
Right.
Okay. And when so do we want to know when we can expect it? Maybe we should know when we can expect that, or we can talk about that tomorrow. Does the board want to talk about this right now? Do you have questions? What?
I'm so sorry. I think I'm just I need some clarity. So this is, you all met, Tom, Terry, Kirsten, Lori. This is just, we're talking about our schedule for future implementation. And you're wanting our feedback and thoughts about it, and you all are meeting tomorrow to discuss what pieces regarding to this.
I don't think we are meeting tomorrow.
At our next agenda planning, whenever that is, we are going to talk about bullet 1, because that's a scheduling matter for the chair, vice chair, and Tom.
Yep.
Then we're going to have to, Tom's going to need to figure out how it looks to bump the agenda from 7 days to 10 days. If that happens, the board is going to need to change our policy around agenda receipt and around questions submitted.
Got it. So there's a couple action items that will have to come from the board out of these suggestions. And so you all want to meet and talk a little bit more about the transition.
Right.
In terms of some policies that need to change.
Right.
Regarding these.
Yep, and so once that happens, we can bring that back. Once our goals and once our goal progress measures and all of that are done by the end of September, and and any changes to the monitoring calendar that might come, given a potential change in agenda release, because that might change data availability. So the monitoring calendar might have to change. That would be brought to the board to be adopted. And then those last two bullets under by the end of September, board time tracking will begin, which means Lori's going to be watching every one of our meetings and tracking the amount of time we spend talking about student outcomes and the amount of time we don't. So that we can, and then she's also going to start tracking board, it says board staff time tracking will begin, and I believe that is a matter of her getting information from Tom regarding the amount of time spent by staff in prepping for each agenda and translating that into staff time into money, so that we also understand that impact as well.
Got it.
Does that make sense? And then by November, we'll complete our first quarterly tracker, which essentially is a quarterly self-evaluation of the board, which we've talked about. And the coach will meet with the board to review. So that'll probably be that first meeting in November, so that it happens with this sitting board.
Got it.
Okay?
So when are we looking at changing, when the board receives the agenda packet? Is that what we have to decide?
Yep, we're gonna have to decide that by the end of September, it looks like.
Okay.
And Tom will need to,
I need to work through some things with folks involved with putting those together to make sure I don't overpromise.
Got it. Okay, so we're probably thinking September for that change.
yep. And then after that fact, there will be dates set for the board to return to the public with our goals and such. The other thing that's not on this list that we're gonna need to think about is how we are going to be advertising our goals and our goal progress so that it is very visible everywhere, so. Does that all make sense to everyone? Sorry, I should have just gone through that from the beginning, but I was thinking it would be reading to people. That might have been just easier to begin with, sorry.
Nope, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so does anyone have anything else that we need to, I think this is a lot of things, but
I think we're good.
if there's something else that we should be thinking about? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Next item is, are the information-only items. We have the preliminary plans for various school improvement projects for your review. And then we have items of privilege, and I just wanted to say thank you to those who were able to attend our workshop on Saturday for how the school board works. We did have about 15 community members, which I think was a really good turnout, that came to learn about school board and governance and about our district on Saturday. And information from that session will be posted online, so keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure if it's been posted yet, but we'll post the reading list and hopefully a video and whatnot from that session and other information that was shared. I want to remind everyone that the first day for filing a nomination petition to run for school board is August 26th, and the last day is September 19th. We really need to get word out in the community about this. We have 4 seats on the school board, which will be up for election, 1 at-large seat for a term of 4 years, the Director District 1 seat for a term of 4 years, the Director District 3 seat for a term of 4 years, and the Director District 2 seat for a term of 2 years. Candidates must live within the boundaries for which they are running. If running for a Director District seat, petition signatures must come from within the boundaries of that Director District. And petitions are filed within those deadlines mentioned between August 26th and September 19th with the board secretary of the district, and for DMPS, our acting board secretary is Nick Lenhart. So that information, I haven't checked if it's on the website, but if it's not, it will be soon so that everyone understands what the steps are for running for a school board seat. So do any other board members have comments to share?
Yeah.
Ms. Brown?
I just want to say thank you to all those that put together the Climate and Culture Summit. It was amazing. I didn't get to attend day 2, but I did attend day 1, and I was very appreciative of the speakers that were there, and I think they really pushed the envelope for people to be mindful of some things, and for a person of color, some of the things that they said I could relate to and appreciate, and was glad that they had the space and the place to be able to project their ideas on our teachers and staff and really get them to thinking about things and how in which they operate going into the new school year. So for everyone that was involved with that, kudos to you all. I just thought it was an amazing summit for the part of it that I got to see.
Great, thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I actually was going to say the same thing. I was able to attend both days, and makes me really proud, the things that the district is doing, and all the sessions were very relevant, and just gave a lot of opportunity for the staff and staff from hopefully around Iowa to really dig deep and for the sake of our students. So I think that I can't say enough. It's a wonderful conference. I've been to many conferences, and I tell everyone, like, you really have to come to this conference. And I did get some people from Waukee, and they were like, oh, we're coming every year now. So we just need more of that. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do have one thing I shared with both Cindy and Tom, that I was in Nashville a week ago and had the wonderful pleasure of meeting one of Thomas Harper's sisters, and spent some really quality time with her. And she's just a joy and delight. But I also shared with her just what a wonderful gift Thomas was to this district. And she was just, of course, taken by that. But I said it should come as no surprise to you that he was awesome. And so I was just reflecting back on the budget book, and I see where we dedicated it to Thomas. And I'm going to, not that she wants this entire book, but I am going to send this to her because I think it's just really meaningful, and I think it really underscores what a valuable asset Thomas was to Des Moines Public Schools. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that.
Thanks,
Terry.
Terry. Anybody else? Okay, I will turn it over to Dr. Ahart for the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I would like to express my gratitude for everybody involved with putting on our fourth annual Culture and Climate Summit. You know, that started 4 years ago with the idea that we had this large federal grant that would expire in a short period of time. And that first year that we had the grant, we did send a pretty big number of teachers and others to the best conferences that were available around the country, and just said, you know, we can do this better ourselves, and we can customize it to meet what we feel like we need, and that addresses the needs that our staff have around serving our students effectively. And if we do it right, we can generate a revenue source that will continue to enable us to further this work well beyond the life of the grant. And that's exactly what has happened. So we're actually at a point now in planning for the conference of either keeping it about this size or attempting to take a huge step that would warrant an investment in renting additional space, and really attempting to grow it beyond what now is significant, I would say a significant conference, and serving obviously teachers in Des Moines and the metro, but around the state, and I think 26 other states around the nation. So it's well respected. It's a high quality event, and we've been able to keep it, where I think is a pretty strategic time, right before all of our staff comes back, so that thinking hopefully is fresh in their thinking and in their hearts when they enter the school year. So congratulations. And then the other note I just want to add is a big congratulations to staff at each of our high schools that have done double duty over the summer. And we had summer graduation last week, And it was nearly 140 summer graduates, which was in large part due to some very strategic efforts in finding students and going a few extra yards with a number of them to ensure that they had all the pieces in place to be counted as a 2019 graduate of Des Moines Public Schools. So that was a very good evening on last Wednesday. That's all I have.
Thank you. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting and we'll hold our closed session in about 10 minutes.